All right, I made my second opening day roster predictions earlier today, and after that, there was a comment. I want to shout out one of the fans of the show, Jeremiah Miller on Twitter. He said, "Hey Ben, just watched your video, and I think you should have started with everyone left explaining who can opt out of minor league deals and who has no options left. This roster crunch right now is insane. Brett Sullivan has no options." And then he mentioned the Rule 5 guy from Baltimore, Juan Nunez, who pitched today, looked pretty good in their spring training game at Peoria. Dylan Cease, my goodness. Him and Michael King. Pretty last good starts going into the season. But anyway, thank you, Jeremiah, for pointing that out. And so that made me want to make this video here today and get this out to you guys as soon as possible. So this is not all of the information that Jeremiah wanted here about who has the ability to opt out of their minor league deals, but I can give you as many as I know, like that I remember reading or that has been pointed out to me. So here is the list. I'll get to the options first, though, so I don't forget the opt out part of minor league deals. Jose Iglesias can opt out. Yuli Gurriel can opt out if they're not on the 40-man roster by the end of this weekend. I think it was Dennis Lynn that tweeted that out. It was pointed out to me by someone, apologies, I forget who, but Oscar Gonzalez, he has two options left. He's on a minor league deal, but he can also opt out if he's not on the roster. So we can take that into account. Padres can remember that, obviously. So now getting to the options left for these following players, it's a lot of guys, and I'm not just naming the entire roster. It's a lot of names, though. It's guys that may be on the bubble. Some of them I don't think are on the bubble, but they're not guaranteed like a starting spot. So I did include them in this list. If you want the full list so you can see it visually, I put it out on my Twitter at Talking Friars. But let's start with the pitchers. Steven Kolek, he has three options left. Kyle Hart has two options left. Randy Vasquez has one option left. And by the way, I found these on Fangraphs, so shout out to them. Juan Nunez, no options, Rule 5. So if the Padres decide not to carry Juan Nunez, they have to give him back to the Baltimore Orioles. And in return, I want to say they get $100,000 back. I will get, by the way, at the end of this list, I will get to what these minor league options mean and kind of just go through that a little bit more for you guys. Wes Benjamin, two options left. He's on a minor league deal. Ron Marinaccio, one option left. So they could use that for him not to make the bullpen out of spring. Logan Gillespie, he's out of options. Earlier today on that show that I did, I put Gillespie on it. He's out of options. That's part of my reasoning there. Now, moving on to the position players, Luis Camposano has one option left, so they can do that to start the year. Martin Maldonado, he is on a minor league deal, so they could put him in El Paso. I don't know if he had an opt out, though, if he doesn't make the roster. I think he's making the roster, though. Brett Sullivan, he is out of options, but he's not making the roster, so we'll get to what that means here in a second. Connor Joe, two options left. I think that's important to remember or for some people to know because you may want to advocate for Connor Joe to make the roster. He's on a major league deal, but there's not a lot of spots, and Gavin Sheets is making it. It seems like Gurriel's going to make it, so that doesn't really leave room there for Connor Joe, much room. Eggy Rosario, he is out of options. He is another very intriguing guy because he can play some outfield, he can play the infield, he can DH, bat off the bench, he has some power, and he's out of options. So I think they could trade him if they make him available. They DFA him, they make him available to someone through waivers. Another team would pick him up. Jose Iglesias, minor league deal, can opt out, like I said, or if not on the 40-man by the end of the weekend. There's also, I did see Kevin Acee, like when this initially happened, there were a couple of dates. I forget, I couldn't find the exact piece, but there were dates, specific dates that Iglesias could opt out if he's not on the major league roster. I believe it's end of spring training. I think another one's in April 1st, or maybe end of April or beginning of May. And then another one I want to say is in June or July. So there's multiple opt-outs there for Iglesias. Gavin Sheets, he has one option, but he's making the team. Tyler Wade, he is out of options. That's a question mark too. Because if he's made available, is there another team out there that could use a Tyler Wade? I would think so. Brandon Lockridge, I don't think he's going to make the roster, but he's playing really well this spring. The good news for the Padres, he has 3 options. Tirsa Ornelas, he has 2 options. Yuli Gurriel, minor league deal that he's on, and he can't opt out if he's not on the 40-man by the end of the weekend. And Oscar Gonzalez, 2 options left, is what I saw on Fangraphs, but I believe he can. It was pointed out to me by someone. He can. Who was it here? Josh Porter. Shout out to you. Thank you. 2 options left, but he can opt out if he's not on the 40-man by opening day. So that's a lot of guys that I just named. How many guys is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19 guys there that are either on the bubble or they were brought in maybe to compete for a spot. And those were just names that I, looked at as I went through the roster that, yeah, I should at least, mention them here and put them on here. So those are the options. Those are the situations there. Getting to what the minor league options are, just for some clarification or those that are wondering, this is what MLB.com has to say about these options. Players on a 40-man roster are given 3 minor league options. An option allows that player to be sent to the minor leagues without first being subjected to waivers. Players who are optioned to the minors are removed from a team's active 26-man roster, but they remain on the 40-man roster. A player who is on the 40-man but does not open the season on the 26-man roster or the IL must be optioned to the minor leagues. So that's one option that gets used up there. Once an option player has spent at least 20 days in the minors in a given season, he loses one of his options. Only one minor league option is used per season, regardless of how many times a player is optioned to and from the minors over the course of a given season. There is a limit, though. Players may only be optioned 5 times per season. After that, it requires outright assignment waivers to assign the player to the minor leagues. And now, the following thing here, out of option players. So who are those out of option players here from this list? Juan Nunez isn't in it because he's Rule 5, but Logan Gillespie is on this. Brett Sullivan is a part of this list. Eggy Rosario, Tyler Wade. Those are guys that they are out of options. Out of options players must be DFA, designated for assignment, which removes them from the 40-man roster, and they pass through outright waivers before being eligible to be sent to the minors. So if Wade doesn't make the roster, they put him on waivers. Any team, there's a waiver order, but a team can pick him up and say, yeah, you're ours. I believe the Padres, when they DFA a guy, they have 10 days to make a trade. There's the waivers, something, and then if those 10 days go by, I believe, is when they could put him into the minor leagues if no one, grabs him up by then. Where was I here? Pass through outright waivers. So yeah, okay. So these guys that I talked about, Wade, Eggy Rosario, Logan Gillespie. Gillespie, maybe he would pass through. Maybe the Padres are like, hey, let's keep Juan Nunez, for example, because he's Rule 5, and let's hope that Logan Gillespie passes through, and then we can put him in El Paso. Eggy Rosario, I feel like he'd be snatched up by someone. I think Tyler Wade would be snatched up by someone. But if you're going to have Gurriel and Iglesias on the roster, you can't have Rosario and Wade because you need that one of those 4 bench spots to be for the second catcher. So some tough decisions are going, like I was talking about on the show earlier today, tough decisions are going to have to be made here. And it may be like the Padres want a player that isn't out of options on the team because they think he's the best option, and then they risk having Eggy get snatched up or Tyler Wade get snatched up. So I know that there's questions by the media to Mike Schilt about this pretty much every day. And Mike Schilt probably is going to give as little as he can. And although he did say that when the team leaves, I think Monday, back to San Diego, they'll have a good idea of who is on the roster. Maybe they won't make it public, but they'll have a better idea of who's on the roster. Because if you're the Padres, why would you send someone that isn't making the roster to San Diego and then you send them to El Paso? Maybe the player would want to do that, but the player may just be like, hey, I need a little bit of a break here before the minor league season starts. Me not making the opening day roster, like I worked my butt off all off season and spring for this, and it's just super disappointing. So they may want some time off and not go with the team that they're not on. But isn't there a taxi squad, right? Or maybe that was just for COVID. But maybe they bring a couple guys in case something freaky happens. But yeah, this 26 man, Schilt did say 13 and 13. I thought there was a limit. I thought you had to have only 13 pitchers, so that leaves 13 position players, including DH, or else teams could stack their pitching staffs with more than 13. More on the options, by the way, for anyone interested. You can find it on MLB.com. Upon being optioned to the minor leagues, a position player must remain there for a minimum of 10 days before he's eligible to be recalled to the major league roster. For pitchers, the minimum is 15 days. So you can bring them back and forth and kind of yo-yo that way, but you can't do it like on a Friday, I'll bring you up. You're going to be, as a reliever, let's say, you're down on Saturday because you just pitched, but we could use a Sunday, so we'll send you down and then we'll bring you up Sunday. You can't do that. If a player is serving as the 27th man for a doubleheader or replacing a player who has been placed on the IL, there is no minimum number of days for which the option player must remain in the minors, which makes sense. The option years do not need to be used in succession. Any player with fewer than 5 years of major league service time and an option year remaining can be optioned to the minor leagues. Players with more than 5 years of service time must consent to being optioned. And a lot of these vets that the Padres signed to minor league deals, for example, there are opt-outs before, the minor league season starts. If they didn't make the roster, they can opt out. So that's something that the Padres are going to have to weigh as well. But yeah, there's a lot of names here that were on that list. 2 of the 3 of Kolek, Hart, Vasquez will make it, so won't have to worry about that. And there are options with all those guys. Juan Nunez is interesting because if they don't, then they got to give him back to Baltimore, or at least offer him back to Baltimore. Gillespie, out of options. Do they want to use the option on Ron Marinaccio? Sullivan, he may not pass through. Or excuse me, he may pass through, so the Padres could have him catch in El Paso still, be like a backup to Campy. Because if you're the Padres, you need to get Campy playing time. Because I think if you're the Padres, you want to give him, one more chance. He has that one option left. But yeah, Tyler Wade and Eggy Rosario, those are 2 that I'm very interested in to see what happens there. Because you got Iglesias, who seems like he's going to make it. You got Gurriel taking up another DH spot, first base, bat off the bench, that sort of thing. So that's 2, and then you have Maldonado as 3. So it's 1 spot. And some guys who had amazing springs, hopefully they don't view it as like, oh, the Padres are sending this message to me as good, I'm not going to get rewarded for playing well. There's just a lot of guys that are playing well. So it's not like one guy's standing out. It's not like Brandon Lockridge is the only guy that's standing out, and then he doesn't make the roster. Like, that would be different. But there's a lot of guys that are balling out right now.